Okay, so I'm now tapping a Beta Christmas Ale, barrel aged in Thomas Handy barrels. Don't confuse with Thomas Hardy. This is apparently something special, so here goes. Already vented it 2 days ago, by the way, so you just see me tapping it. Alright, let's see what it's like. That's nice. I can get the flavours in there that meant to be. It's not quite ready for serving yet though. It's still fairly cloudy, and it's still got a few floaters of yeast. Tastes great, smells great, but it just needs a bit more time.
This is Barry here from the Brewed Palate. I'm here with Alex Hall, the local New York City Cask expert. So, of course, I know him, but you guys don't really know him. So can you talk a little about how you were trained in England with Cask and now what you do as the Cask expert in New York?
Yes, I had really good training. Started working in this really great cask beer pub, the Evening Star in Brighton, which is 50 miles south of London on the coast. That was back in 1992, and that was the go-to place in the whole of the town. Apart from one brew pub, that was it, really. And like the owners, they knew their stuff, and they taught me everything there is to know, really, about keeping cask properly. Like how long it should be on for, all the little bits and pieces that a good cellar person should know. So that was back in the early 90s, and did so well I became a brew pub 2 years later.
And when did you come to America and start doing cask here?
I moved in 1999. I couldn't work at first, as obviously it's I've got to get a green card first, but when that finally came through, I kind of launched my own campaign over here as Cask. Because back then it's an absolute rarity. Like there were 5 places in the whole of New York City that did cask, and it was very predictable what those casks would be. One was a brew pub that had the same beer on all the time, and there was like 2 or 3 breweries otherwise that would do cask. Very, very predictable, and it's kind of boring. So I kind of try to open people's mind, like look at what they're doing in the UK. I mean, it's beer heaven over there, and over here it's like gold dust. Like you can't find it. And I started buying beer engines, the hand pumps on eBay, and cleaning them up and offering them around to bars. Like I can set you up with cask. Like all you need is clamp this on, work out a way of cooling it in the cellar to like the low 50s, and away you go. You're going to be one of the few places in town with cask.
And now that cask is really popular, especially in New York City craft beer scene, I know that here at DBA Brooklyn, where we are in the cellars, I know this is one of the bars that, one of your babies that you maintain, the cask. So what is it like, what's the routine of maintaining the casks at a bar like this where there's always a few casks on?
It's always hands-on. You must never neglect a cask. You've got to, before it goes on the pump, you've got to watch it for clarity. You don't want to put it on too early, because all the subtle flavours might not have come through. It's actually good to have just a little bit of exposure to oxygen, just a little bit, not too much, because that's going to stain it too quickly. So you just got to monitor it every day. Like, the best way of doing it is like tap it after you've vented it. Tap it, see what it's like, and monitor its progress over the next couple of days or longer if necessary. Occasionally, if it doesn't clear on its own accord, you'll have to put a substance known as finings in the cask. You have to take it off the stillage, which is a pain. Crack it open, put finings in, shake it up, put it back on the stillage, wait for the finings to interact with the yeast and the protein, which bonds. What this stuff does, it bonds, makes clumps of yeast basically, and drags it down to the bottom with the solid mass that's formed as a result. So yeah, it's really hands-on. It's a labour of love, because what you get as the end result is the best beer you'll ever taste.
All right, so we see a lot of, you know, lines here and stuff tapped into the cask, but what does it really, how do you tap the cask and then get it up to the bar?
It's really simple. It's all manual. There's no extraneous gas pushing it. So we'll have a look here. This is a tap that gets hammered into this fitting, which is called the keystone. And on the front, you've got a screw thread, and here's the line up to the bar. And you've just got the tailpiece with a nut, which has got there's several sizes that have got to correspond, obviously. 3 different sizes of thread. So it's this matter of tapping it, obviously you've got to make sure the beer is ready for serving before you attempt to do that. Then just couple this up, turn the tap on, and up here we have this is called the shive. Normally you'd have what's called a soft spile, which is a porous wooden peg which allows air to go into the headspace of the cask as beer is drawn out. But here we have a cask breather which preserves the beer for considerably longer than if it was just left exposed to air. Here we have the cask breather aspirator. That's like the demand valve. You can't see it under there because it's hidden by that cask, but there's a little CO2 tiny CO2 bottle with a regulator set to 4 psi. So when there's a vacuum created in this bit by beer coming out, that will open and let a little bit of CO2 go into the headspace. So that's the ins and outs of it. This is a system that is very controversial in the UK. Campaign for Real Ale don't like them, but I do like them. So I think it's much better to have a beer that's not going to stale within 3 or 4 days than something that you have to get through within 3 or 4 days. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it at all. This is the cask breather is seriously helping the spread of cask in the US. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't drink the beer. That's all I can say. But yes, these are literally a godsend. I mean, you get like many more days out of the cask. But that doesn't mean to say that you should be complacent about the quality. The good cellar person will still be checking it every day, and if, despite being on the cask breather, if there's any oxidation coming through, then the cask should get pulled, and what's left in there should get dumped. So that's absolutely not a reason or an excuse for being complacent in the cellar. So yeah, so there you go. That's what it looks like. Here we have a plastic cask. Here we have a stainless steel cask, and we've got all 3. Aluminium, should I say, since I'm an American. So there's 3 different common materials that casks are made out of. Here is a standard clamp onto the bar beer engine, otherwise known as a hand pump. Beer engine is the official word for it, or hand pull sometimes gets used. This is one of the finest from a manufacturing company called Angram. All these beer engines are made in England, no matter who makes them. Nobody in the world outside of the UK makes these. So it's basically a simple design that goes back a couple of hundred years. You can see underneath, you've got just a couple of clamps here. Clamps on the bar, you just insert this bit into the lip of the bar and tighten up these until it's solid. And here, this bit, that's the cylinder. So it's just like a piston, and then see that it moves. See that? Yeah. And that is going to push the beer up when you do that motion on the handle, and the beer will just come out of the spout. No gas whatsoever pushing it up. So it's totally 100% manual, and that's what you want. If there's gas pushing it up, then it can't be classed as official cask. There you go. Just a standard Angram clamp on. You can get other ones. You can get countermounted ones where you have to drill a hole in the bar, and it doesn't have a plinth. You'll just get this brass bit just poking out of the bar at the lowest level, and with this bit just hidden underneath the bar. And you can get cabinet engines as well, which come in their own cabinet.
Oh.
There's various designs. So this is the most standard, most common one.
So as the caliber of craft beer casks has been raising, you recently brought this Cask Mark program into the city. So what is that all about?
Yes, the Cask Mark is hugely successful quality accreditation program in the UK. There's around 8,500 British pubs that have passed the Cask Mark test as such. And it's really strict. Everything has got to be right with every cask that's on offer, and it's got to be the correct temperature. It's got to be in the low 50s. The beer has got to be clear, presuming the beer is meant to be clear. Obviously, if it's a wheat beer, then that's discounted. But and aroma and flavour, they're all marked on points with aroma, flavour, clarity, and temperature. Temperature being the most important. If it's a little bit too warm and everything else is spot on, it will be an automatic failure. So it's very important. And thanks to Paul Pendyke at UK Brewing Supplies down in Pennsylvania, who negotiated with Paul Nunny, who basically runs Cask Mark in the UK. Thanks to him, it's now spreading over here. At first in Paul's area, local area in eastern Pennsylvania, and now he's got me on board to do the New York City area. And so far between the two, there are 9 bars in the US with the quality accreditation, and this bar is one of them. So here we are. We have a bunch of bar towers. I'd say there's like 8 to 10 of them, just spread as far as possible around the sides, the front, and the back. And as the water contained in these towels evaporates, it will actually cool the inside of the cask. So as the towel warms up, the beer cools down. It's something scientific. I never did physics that well at school, so I can't tell you exactly how it works, but I can tell you it definitely does work as long as the ambient temperature is not too high and the ambient humidity is not too high. So it's just a matter of hands-on again, same as testing the quality, just feeling these towels. When any part of it feels dry, just pull it off, soak it in cold water in the sink, put it back on.
And what are the
one
other
thing-
options other than the towels?
You can do ice blankets, which generally work with the ready-made jackets. That's more expensive. It's far more expensive doing that way than here, and it's just as hands-on because you've got to keep refreezing the ice jackets. And yeah, that's or you could do it if it's a permanent gravity pour at the same spots. You can have a saddle and jacket tapped into the glycol system. That's kind of complicated to explain right now. One thing I should say is I've been, this is quite important, I've been horrified at the number of gravity casks I've seen through the years who don't, open bars don't put any kind of cooling on, or they'll put a token, like 1 or 2 even wet towels just sat on the top, like some kind of hat. That's not going to do anything. It's got to be all the way around, like as much as possible of the circumference of the cask. The most of it. I wish I could get it underneath actually, but you've got to move the cask, so I can't do that because that would disturb the yeast. So I've got it as far around as humanly possible, like all 4 sides. So if you're anywhere and you see a gravity cask without any kind of cooling on, take the bar owner or bar manager to task, saying that's going to be room temperature. Like, what are you doing? Like, or even if it's just got something sat on top. It's the sides, the front, and the back. It's got to be cooled as well. It's ideal to take beer out of the fermenter just before it's finished fermenting. Brewers should crash cool it so the yeast stops working. Put it in the cask. Put some sort of priming sugar in there, whether it be krausening or sugar, some kind of sugar itself. So that will encourage the yeast to kick back and inform the secondary fermentation, which provides natural carbonation.
Right.
And yeah, so just like take it out of the fermenter just before the end, like feed the yeast, put some finings in if you want. Most UK brewers, about 98% of UK brewers use finings standard. I would say less than a quarter of US brewers, I haven't got a ready figure, I'd say less than a quarter bother with finings. I just take it as it comes. Usually it will clear or mostly clear on its own. Sometimes I'll get one which is a little too cloudy for comfort, and I'll put my own finings in, which again, that's something that a good cellar person needs access to if necessary. You've got to do it properly or not at all, is my way of looking at it.
How does it work? You know, if the kegs are so, you know, delicate, how does it work like a West Coast brewery or a Midwest brewery would get their casks here and they arrive in good shape?
Oh, well, that's fine. It's just once they've been broached and tapped.
Then you can.
Yeah, because like you've got the spillage here. All these have been settling for days, and once every beer has to undergo its transit phase, and a lot of kegs aren't filtered and pasteurised, so they could do with being sitting on the ground and not being moved as well. So yeah, things change when the cask gets broached. When it gets vented and tapped, then basically oxygen gets in when you vent it.
How does it work with, like, you said we were talking about adding oak chips to a cask. How does it work with breweries adding stuff to the cask?
How do you mean by
like adding hops? Like you said, the yeast has to settle out, but what if there's extra hops in there? What if there's extra, you know, oak?
Extra hops. Fine. That would contribute to the aroma more than the flavour, though. If it's just dry hops, it's a bit less to put them in a bag. If you put them loose, that might cause unnecessary cloudiness in the beer, which is sort of undesirable. But in the US, like nobody really cares that much. In the UK, they would. It's a big no-no to have cloudy cask in the UK.
All right, so actually I should ask you a question about the UK and England, because you go back there at least once
Sure.
a year. A lot of bars there have like a bunch of casks, not like
Yeah.
3 on casks on, but like 6 or more.
Uh-huh.
So what does it take? How do they maintain like so many pubs like that in the UK where there's so much cask on?
Well, there's 2 ways of doing it. Either they use a cask breather, or cask breather aspirator to give it its full name, thereby protecting the beer from oxygen, which is beer's enemy. And in the absence of that, the only way they can get through that many and keep them in good condition is if they have a high turnover. They don't need the cask breathers. If the beer is going to be on more than 4 days, they need cask breathers basically. Otherwise, you'll get oxidized beer at the end.
Just want to ask one last question. For those craft beer fans all over the world developing their palates, trying new beers all the time, going after the beers that have a lot of hype around them, why should someone who's into craft beer, try cask beer? What will that contribute to their development of their palate?
All right, so I'm going to go to specifically British cask beers, because American cask beers tend to be quite a bit different. British cask beers, which is where all the casks and the relative equipment come from over here. Nothing is manufactured in the US anymore. They tend to be low gravity beers with very subtle nuances. They can, you'd be surprised, a 3.5% beer can be really surprisingly complex. And if you drink it at the right temperature, when it's fresh, it's naturally carbonated with no extraneous gas messing up your palate and messing with the flavours. So it's just like a whole potpourri of subtle flavours with such beers. In the US, yes, you can get that quite often. I'm drinking a Wandering Star Joneswood Session IPA right now, which is full of such nuances. But on the other end, you'll get big bold ones in cask, and sometimes such beers got even further flavoured with various things, such as what you're drinking now, Barry, which
I'm drinking the Flying Dog Gonzo, which is an imperial porter they added habaneros to. It's a little daunting. I haven't taken my first sip yet, but since Gonzo is one of my favorite beers, even though I'm not usually a fan of chili beers, thought I'd give it a try. But this is just another sign of the creativity of American breweries and where they've taken casks. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank Alex, not only for the interview, obviously, for showing me around the cellar here at DBA Brooklyn, but for bringing cask out to New York City and all over the Northeast, because I know you do festivals elsewhere, and hope to experience more of what you can contribute to the New York City.
My pleasure. That's what you do. Cheers. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh, wow.